the Young Dudes by MsKingBean89, Chapter 115, Summer 1977, Part 2. 2 hours later, Peter and Dorcas were snogging, rolling backwards onto the grass. Everyone was drunk, but they were probably the drunkest. "Go back to your tent if you're going to do that," James threw an empty cider can at them. "Do you mind, Mooney?" Peter surfaced, red in the face and bleary-eyed. "If we go back to ours, you can bunk in with Prongs and Padfoot, can't you?" "Oh, don't worry," Remus waved a hand. "I'll find somewhere." Sirius still hadn't looked at him, and he had the feeling that after the evening's revelations, he would not be particularly welcome. Peter and Dorcas disappeared. There was muffled giggling from within the tent, then the ghostly, hollow quiet of a silencing charm. "Share with us if you want, Remus," Mary said, getting up to leave for her own tent. Lily nodded. "Yeah, our tent's much bigger. Come in with us." "Thanks, girls," he smiled. He really was grateful. "You go on. I'm not tired yet. Think I'll just go for a walk." He got up, limbs stiff and aching, and headed for the sea. It was properly dark now, away from the fire, but Remus had always been able to see in the dark. The tide was in, and louder than ever. A cold breeze flew forth, and he fumbled in his back pocket for a cigarette. He lit it up and inhaled deeply, closing his eyes, feeling that now he could really think. He was glad he had said it, no matter what the reaction, but he still considered leaving. Okay, so they weren't all about to kick his head in, but who knew how they'd all act in the cold light of the morning, stark and sober? Was it better or worse than being a werewolf? He could still apparate if he wanted to, go and look for Grant maybe. Remus felt a surge of guilt. He hadn't thought about Grant in a while, maybe not all year. The other boy had been so kind to him, taken him in and been willing to put him up indefinitely. He'd given Remus some excellent advice too, if only Remus had taken it. Stay away from posh boys. "All right, Mooney," James approached him. Remus turned. Sirius was with him, looking sheepish. It looked as though James had dragged him over against his will. Remus wasn't surprised. "All right," he nodded. He offered James a cigarette. James just shook his head. "No. Just wanting to see you were okay." "Fine, thanks." "Good. Sorry if I made things awkward." "You didn't," James said, a little too eagerly, as if he'd been hoping Remus would bring it up first. Sirius winced, but only Remus noticed. "Honestly, mate, we're glad you told us, really." Remus just nodded and looked back at the sea, taking another drag on his cigarette. Behind him, he heard James nudging Sirius, obviously trying to get him to say something reassuring and friendly, but to no avail. James spoke again. "Don't run off, okay, Mooney?" Remus turned back, raising an eyebrow. James was grinning. "Yeah, we know what you're like. Stay, okay? Everything's fine. Even Pete wasn't that bothered." "Pete?" Remus snorted. "He's too busy trying to get his end away." "Can't blame him," James laughed. He touched Remus's shoulder. "Do you want to talk about it?" Remus shook his head, looking down. He stubbed out his cigarette and immediately lit another. Sirius wanted one, he could tell. But Remus was feeling belligerent, and unless Black asked, like a normal human being, he wasn't going to get one. "Thanks, James," Remus said, pointedly, exhaling smoke. "You're a real mate." "Still marauders," James smiled, tiredly. He yawned. "I think I'm going to turn in. Come in." "I'm going to have another one after this." Remus raised a second cigarette. "I'll have one too," Sirius said, gruffly. James nodded, stifling another yawn, and turned away. "Don't come back stinking of fag ash, you two," he threw over his shoulder as he walked back towards the campfire on the turf. Remus returned his gaze to the sea, but handed Sirius the box. He heard him withdraw a cigarette, light it up, and inhale. He waited for it. "Why'd you say that?" Sirius said. Remus closed his eyes and smiled softly. He didn't want to fight, but he was ready for one. He was always ready. "Wanted to. I just had to know what they'd think, one way or another." "It's like you've just gone and changed everything around on me." He didn't sound accusatory. He sounded hurt. "Didn't mean to," Remus said. "Were you expecting me to say something to you?" "No, I wasn't expecting anything," Remus snapped. "It wasn't anything to do with you, actually." Okay. Sirius raised his hands in surrender, still looking uncomfortable. Just I thought you might have told me first, that's all, given the situation. This caught Remus entirely off guard, and he finally looked at Sirius. You mean you didn't already know? How could you not know? You said you weren't, Sirius shrugged. Like I said, I wasn't. Thought we were both on the same page, that's all. Remus found his anger returning. Typical Sirius, never thinking about anything more than his own personal gratification, never once considering that anyone else had feelings or thoughts. Obviously we weren't, he said coldly. Anyway, I don't see how it matters now. If that's all you're worried about, then don't. You're safe, Remus said stonily. I'm not going to tell anyone about you and me, and I doubt anyone suspects you, what with your considerable history with girls. I don't see why you care so much what I tell people. I do care, Sirius protested. Remus closed his eyes. A few months ago, that would have sounded wonderful. But God, he was so tired. Remus, Sirius sounded half annoyed, half frightened. I can care about you and not scream it from the rooftops. Want to get off with me isn't the same as caring. Remus! Fucking hell! Just because I haven't got wherever you have yet, it doesn't mean I don't have the same... Oh, fuck's sake. Sirius cursed at his own inarticulacy. And all the girls, Remus tutted. That's different. Okay, Remus sighed, his voice empty. He was willing to leave it there. Sirius wasn't. You don't understand. Remus didn't say anything. He didn't see that he had to understand. He just had to be the stronger one here. Sirius continued, a hand on Remus's arm. When I think about myself of then, I can just see it, I know how it's going to play out. I know what I'm supposed to do. When I think about me and you, the real me and you, it's just, I can't see how it ends. I just tried not to think about it. So I know I was a bit of a dick. I could have handled it better, but I swear I didn't want it to end like that. His breathing was shallow now. Remus could hear his heart rate increasing by the second. I didn't want it to end at all, to be honest. Remus nodded. He pushed Sirius's hand away gently, looking out at the sea. He knew Sirius was staring at him, but he kept facing forward. Look, Sirius, I don't mean to be cruel. I do understand all that. He really did. Hadn't he been over it all in his own head? I know it's not easy for you. Sirius made a noise of relief at that. Seemed to relax slightly. Maybe they were getting somewhere for once. Remus pushed on. But it is easy for me. I'm queer, okay? I know when we started I said I wasn't but I shouldn't have said that because I am. And I'm not saying you're queer too, or you have to be or anything. But I couldn't carry on the way we were without you acknowledging it. Sirius was watching him very closely as he said this, thinking hard. Remus knew how he looked when he was thinking, when he was working a problem through. It wasn't mischievous or cheeky or sarcastic. It was deeply solemn and serious. It was bloody sexy, actually, but Remus tried to ignore that bit. Finally, done thinking, Sirius gave a short nod. Okay then, he said, simply. What? Remus frowned. Fucking acknowledged. Message received. Sirius stood at his cigarette in the wet sand. So, what? Remus gaped. We just leave things as they are. Sirius scratched behind his ear, looking down, a strange, shy gesture. I'd rather not. You'd rather not? Remus repeated, dumbfounded. No. I mean, if you want me to go around telling everyone I know, then sorry, but we're not all as ballsy as you. I need more time. But I could try. You could try. This was not the outcome Remus had expected when this conversation began. What do you mean? Sirius cut him off, placing a palm on Remus's cheek to turn it towards him and kissing him gently on the lips. I mean, I will try, he said, as he pulled away. I miss you, Mooney. Oh, you would go and say something like that. Remus grabbed him and pulled him back. It was like water after a drought, shelter in a storm. They were the still point of the turning world and every other sloppy cliché you could think of. They kissed for a long time, and when they came apart, they were practically gasping with relief. No more girls? Remus asked, still holding Sirius in place, as if he might run away. No more girls, Sirius agreed. Let's see how this pans out first. Oh, charming, Remus let go, satisfied. Shut up, Sirius nudged him with his shoulder, hands deep inside his pockets. Come on, let's go back to the tent, eh? Freezing. They walked towards the tents in the dying fire with their backs to the wind. I think I'm drunk, Remus said, shakily. He felt all stirred up. I make bad decisions when I'm drunk. Sirius laughed and squeezed his shoulder quickly. I know. I promise this isn't one of them. Okay. I'm trusting you. Unfortunately, they found that none of the tents were available anymore. The tent Remus had been sharing with Pete was well and truly occupied by the sounds of it. Sirius grimaced and cast a fresh silencing spell over the flagging one. Amateurs, he muttered. There was a silencing spell over James and Sirius's tent too. Mary poked her head out the next one along, giggling. It's James and Lily! Are you serious? Sirius gaped. Bloody hell! I mean, wow, I sort of want to go in and shake his hand. I have a feeling his hands are busy, Remus raised an eyebrow. Want to get in with me, Remus? Mary asked, tipsily. What about Sirius? Oh, right. Oh, fine. I'll get in with Morals. Night, lads. She crawled across the grass into Marlene's tent. Sirius and Remus looked at each other for a few moments before Sirius climbed in first. The girls' tent was much more comfortable than theirs, stuffed with blankets and pillows and a plump blow-up mattress. Knew we should have got the Muggleborns to sort us out, Sirius grumbled as he settled in. The mattress was old and sank slightly in the middle, rolling them together in an almost comical way. In the end, the only way to get comfortable was to curl up like spoons. This okay? Remus asked, as he slipped an arm around Sirius's waist. Of course, Sirius replied. We could just sleep. Sonora quiescis. Ah, okay. Well, it had been a while. Afterwards, Remus felt more awake than he ever had in his life. His brain was buzzing with questions, declarations, thoughts, words. It felt like coming out of hiding, like putting back a disguise he had worn too long. He wanted to bear every bit of himself to Sirius. He wanted Sirius to see him. Sirius? There's something I need to tell you. Oh, Merlin, Sirius groaned, rolling onto his back sleepily. What now? Well, I'm homeless. What? Sirius opened his eyes and turned around at once. What? Since I turned 17, you know I'm of age now, so... So they just chucked you out? Remus nodded, glad to share the problem. Yeah, so once Hogwarts finishes next somewhere, I've got nowhere to go. Bastards, Sirius said, angrily. He looked at Remus very seriously. You can stay with me and James, at the Potters. They won't mind, I know they won't. Then, when school's finished, we'll find our own place. We will? Remus raised his eyebrows. Yeah, Sirius replied, happily, folding his arms behind his head. It'll be just like school. You, me, James and Pete, all together. Oh, Remus realised what he'd meant. Yeah, sounds great. I've a bit of money Lyle left me. Pfft, Sirius replied. I've got enough money for all of us. Don't worry about that. Okay, Remus said. I won't worry. Go to sleep, Sirius said, or you'll be knackered tomorrow. Okay, Remus repeated, closing his eyes.